podcasts.
5 Live Boxing.
It's day 3 of Fight Week in Jeddah. It was the head-to-head conference today, and on this show, the champion, Oleksandr Usyk, talks. And AJ, well, he meets an old friend. And Ramla Ali joins me. She's the history maker. And I hear from a local boy, Zizi. He's also on the bill. This is the 5 Live Boxing Podcast with me, Steve Bunce. So far this week, I've managed to do everything inside with blasting air conditioning. And that's because it's hot. I know that sounds like a cliche. Of course it's hot in Saudi. But it's hot. But this time, I've changed it slightly. I'm recording it slightly later. Plus, I'm joined by former Commonwealth Games gold medalist, former European middleweight champion, former Olympic bronze medalist, and former WBC super middleweight champion, and the greatest heat seeker in Telford's history. If there's a pocket of sun, this man will walk over hot coals or swim through crocodile-infested waters just to get a ray of that sun on his head. I'm talking, of course, about Richie Woodhall. Welcome, Richie, to Jeddah. You've flown in on a big day, and you've had a big day. First of all, journey okay getting here? All okay?
Yeah, all okay, Steve. Can't complain. You know, it was nice coming out here. So, yeah, very lucky and privileged to be here.
And it's your second big fight here, because we were here together back in 2019 when Anthony Joshua got revenge and beat Andy Ruiz. Fast forward a couple of years, we're here. And you came in today for the head-to-head. So it was the very first time you saw the pair of them. Today, what were your initial reactions when they came onto that stage today?
I was impressed with both of them in different ways, really. With Anthony Joshua, I thought there was a real serious look about him, Steve. I think he realises that he's got to be very, very different in this next fight to win it. And there was just a serious, no smiles, you know, he means business, basically, look about him. Oleksandr Usyk, what impresses me about him, Steve, more than anything, is that he's still got that sort of innocent look, and the way he is about the fight game. He still doesn't,
because they don't give each other any abuse, verbal abuse, do they? They don't snarl at each other.
No, and you've never seen Usyk do that, and
no,
I think it's
game,
because you know, boxers from the Ukraine, there's not many pro fighters from the Ukraine, and maybe they're not quite with the way we do professional boxing. In, you know, how our business runs, and they're still very respectful for the opponents, and that for me it's a breath of fresh air in one sense.
Because I mean, if you think about in the last, say, 10 or 15 years, when we've had all the great Eastern Bloc fighters, and you know that because you've boxed as an amateur when it was still the Eastern Bloc, you boxed behind the Iron Curtain. You think about the great ones the last 5 or 6 years. Vasyl Lomachenko, of course, is great friends with Usyk. The Kazakh, Gennady Golovkin. You know, he's not. Even Sergey Kovalev, who's got a bit of attitude, the Russian, the great light heavyweight. You know, there's no sort of great history of those guys going head-to-head and being nasty and unpleasant. So that's kind of what I expect from Usyk. But what about the flip side of that is that AJ's got no one he can get slightly angry with. Because you remember against Pulev in that defence, against the Bulgarian Kubrat Pulev, he got very ugly and he got really nasty.
Steve, but at the same time, I think it's gone way past that for AJ, because I think he realises the seriousness of this contest. And it's a must-win contest for him. So forget all the stuff that goes on beforehand. If it does get sort of ugly and tempers you know, are flaring here and there, he hasn't got any of that to go on. But at the same time, I think he realises, from the look at what I've seen him today, he realises that he's in a must-win fight, and it's sort of a must-win attitude. And there was a real serious look about him, and I haven't seen that look on AJ's face for a long, long time.
Well, funny enough, Rich, when I spoke to him, I got a private audience with him on Monday for the pod a couple of days ago. And I said the exact same thing. I said, before we start, can I just say, you look more serious than I've ever seen you. You look more relaxed than I've ever seen you. And he sort of said, so really? I said, honestly, you really do. Then I said something else. And he went, you know what, to be honest with you, Bunce, the talking's finished.
Yeah,
what can I say now? The talking's over. All I can do now is fight. And we're going to hear what happened when Richie, who worked alongside AJ for many years up at the GB setup. In fact, for about 10 years, I reckon you and AJ were sharing a gym up there. Yeah. We're going to hear what happened when AJ and Richie, it's a kind of, it's not quite rom-com, but it's not far off it. It's a really lovely moment when the two of them saw each other and they hadn't seen each other for a good while. And it was a little bit of reminiscing, and I won't lie, I felt slightly left out. I felt like
for once.
Yeah, for once. Yeah. Why aren't I the centre of attention? So I felt a bit left out, but that's neither here nor there. I overcame that. Don't worry about that. But Richie, you mentioned there Usyk. I've got to mention his outfit. He wore this Cossack outfit, and in fact, I spoke to a traditional outfit. It was. I went and had a look at it. It wasn't a fancy outfit made to look traditional. It was a traditional one, Rich. And I spoke to one of the Ukrainian journalists, and hopefully we'll hear from him before the end of the week. And he was quite brilliant, Ukrainian journalist. And he explained to me about that funny little tuft of hair that Usyk has, which is just a little ponytail, which people think is just some kind of...
It reminded me of Kostasou once.
Well, there we go. It's the same thing. It's a traditional Soviet thing. And in Usyk's case, it's a Cossack thing. And then this guy, as I was talking to him, I swear it, I'm not exaggerating, as I was talking to Andre, okay, he started to stand up. Like he was standing to attention, like an anthem was playing.
Brilliant.
And his English got better. And and I won't do his English Ukrainian accent because I get in trouble for that. But he started to talk about how being a Cossack and a proud Cossack and the dances he does in the ring and around the gyms, which we think of him playing around. They're not. No. They're traditional dances and the pride. And that's a big factor. Now, I want to ask you a little bit about that, Rich, because slightly lower down the scale, you fought in front of a rabid fan base in Telford, your hometown. Big fights in there, world title fights, European title fights, a couple of thousand people, everyone that knew you. That's a bit of pressure on you, Rich, let's get that right. Yeah. He's fighting for a country, an entire nation, that's going to watch this fight for free on their phones, on their tablets, on their laptops, and on their TVs. Can you imagine that amount of pressure, Richie, as a fighter?
No, I can't, because I know, being a world champion, the pressure I was under boxing in front of my home fans, Steve, there was a lot of pressure on you, and you have to deal with it. I think seeing that the traditional national sort of costume that he was wearing, I think he's sending out a message that he's representing Ukraine. Obviously, the horrors that's happening over there, we all know about, and he wants to show people he's the heavyweight champion in the world, and he's representing Ukraine in every way possible. And by wearing that traditional national costume, he looked fantastic, Steve. And again, there was a serious look about him, but in a different sort of way, Steve. And you know what? I looked right into his eyes when I asked him some questions, and he has got sort of, how can I describe it? It's an exciting, menacing...
Intensity? Can you go intensity? I would.
Look about him. It's basically a winning mentality and a winning look about him. And it's fearless is the other word I'm looking for. He's got a fearless mentality, that kid. You can just see it when you speak to him and he looks and he answers what he says he really means, and the kid's fearless.
Fearless, intensity. It's a couple of words that we've been throwing around when we talk about Usyk. Well, that's Richie there mentioning that he got to spend some time with Usyk. This is what happened when Richie met Oleksandr.
Oleksandr, the fight itself, you were very successful last time. You must expect a different Anthony Joshua this time.
So you wait another Anthony Joshua.
You are, in my opinion, the perfect counter-puncher. So you expect Anthony Joshua to keep coming this time?
I'm not expecting for anything. The first round going to show the way it goes.
How important is it for people of Ukraine to see the contest for free?
It's important for them. Even if, in case it wouldn't be for free, we would find the way to make it free.
And how important is it that your wife is here to support you also?
As long as I haven't seen my family for more than 5 months. So my wife came here to support me because she is a part of me.
So that's Richie and Usyk, and I'm sort of interested about that, not having seen his wife for whatever it is, 5 months, and seeing her again. Were you actually ever in training camps, or did you train from Telford as a base, or did you actually ever go away for 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks?
No, because for my world title fights, apart from Keith Holmes, my first world title fight, we went out there I think a week and a half before in Washington. So I was happy at home.
Yeah.
I brought my sparring partners in. That's the way I like to work. I put them up in hotels, and I met them at the gym, and I trained. And I went home on a night time.
So what he's talking about there is a very big sacrifice, okay?
Yes, not seeing his family.
Seeing his family. If you haven't seen them for 4 or 5 months,
Man.
you know yourself, you and I have been at loads of, this sounds like we're bragging, you and I have been at a lot of Olympics together, Rich,
Yeah.
and we were away for 20 days,
Yeah.
and we go back to our kids, and we've been going back to our kids when they were young. Our kids are adult now, but we've been going back when they were 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever. It's a wrench going back, isn't it? It's hard going back. So how must it be when you suddenly see your wife and your children again after 5 months in the week of a fight?
Yeah, that's a pretty crazy situation, really.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if you've not seen your wife for 4 or 5 months because of training, you would think then the final hurdle would be the fight, and then you would see her afterwards. But obviously, when we spoke today, he is very comfortable with her being around him fight week, and I suppose he feels he says she is a part of me, so he feels comfortable and inspired that his wife's there supporting him, and that then inspires him to do better, Steve. That's all I can say. He's very comfortable, and sometimes that's a strange situation, because I'm going to name drop here. I remember speaking to the late great marvellous Marvin Hagler, and he used to speak about being away from his family and his wife, and it would drive him mad, and it would make him angry.
Yes.
And he would turn that anger then into the performance.
No comforts, no wife, no kids, nothing.
Nothing. And he would turn that then into the performance. So for Oleksandr Usyk to go all that time without seeing his family, but then see his wife in the final week of a fight, I found that strange. But, it's what works for the fighter, Steve.
Well, let's hear from Joshua. Let's hear from the man himself. He sat down with my colleague, the BBC's Adi Adedoyan.
Anthony, in the context of everything you've been through in your career, the successes you've had, how big is this as an occasion?
The biggest one. Like, we're here, and the one that's right in front of you has to be the biggest one. So I've got to take this one the most serious, because it's the one in front of me.
I've spoken to a lot of people today, fighters, trainers, and they're saying to me that all he needs to do in there is be aggressive and take the fight to Usyk. Is it that simple?
Yeah, it's boxing. Like, I feel like it's not like golf or anything like that. This is a competitive sport, and you have to compete at the highest level. Yeah, so 100% they're right. They're not wrong. And that boy's going to try to do the same to me. So we'll see who's got the bigger balls.
Tell me, what is it like being AJ this week? Because none of us can really know the pressure that you're under in terms of what's at stake. There's a lot at stake on Saturday night. What is it like being you?
Yeah, there's definitely pressure. Like, it would be wrong for me to be like, nah, I ain't got no pressure. That would be a lie. But one thing I do understand is there's so many athletes around the world competing on Saturday, right? So we're all going through the pressure. All of us feel the same, but it's just who deals with it best. And I think because I prepare myself, not just physically, like, it's going to be tough, it's going to go the rounds, going to get a minute break. It's how I'm going to deal with it mentally. So I'm ready mentally for that pressure, because that's where I can thrive.
What have you done to actually prepare yourself mentally for this? Because elite sport, a lot of it is mental. People go in there and you can do it, but it's on the day with the bright lights, the pressure. How do you actually prepare yourself for that occasion, particularly with everything that's at stake?
As you mentioned, how do I prepare? So understanding it. Understanding there's going to be pressure. So once you understand it, you can then deal with it. What is pressure? Why do you feel pressure? Understand, okay, is it because I want to perform well? If I want to perform well, let me review my sparring. All right, I wasn't doing that right, so I'm doing that better. So that's that pressure gone. Let me focus on what else. And then you then put yourself in that position where it's, all right, cool, fighting out, what am I going to do? Am I doing it in the ring, etc., etc.? So you just start trying to tick off the boxes, how to overcome these obstacles of pressure. And that's what training is about, is overcoming all these obstacles. And then once that bell goes, there's no pressure no more. It's just focus. Like, just do what I got to do.
You got Robert Garcia in your corner, new trainer. I was talking to Ronnie Shields, who used to train Mike Tyson.
I went to see Ronnie Shields as well in Texas, yeah.
he told me that he thinks you're going to win, but he also talked about the fact that with his fighter, there's a chemistry that you need to develop. Now, you're with Robert Garcia, and if you're with someone who knows you well, they know exactly what to say to you in those critical moments. How confident are you that this man can tell you what you need to know when it really matters?
So let me be real. Like, in the corner, you hardly remember anything. You know what I'm saying? Let's be real. Like, it's high pressure. You can take in a piece of information, but boxing is about instinct. You know, we're instinctive creatures. When we get in the ring, it's all about instinct. So I'm going to listen to my corner, but if that thing ain't happening, I've got to be instinctively smart enough to then come up with my own situation. And that's how you win a fight. Look at the rope-a-dope. No one would have said, "Oh, Lee, I want you to sit on the rope for the next 8 rounds and take as much punishment as you can and then let him but he figured that out instinctively, and that's what makes a champion. So I am going to listen to my corner. I've listened to them for the last 8 months of training with them. Now it's about instinct, and I've got to go in there and want it myself. Garcia, Angel, McCracken, my mum, my father can't win this for me. It's just me.
Just what would it mean for you to regain that title after everything you've been through?
Nothing. Like, I'm just going to be chilling. Just go back home, get back, go back to the boxing gym. It ain't that big of a big deal. For everyone else it is, but like, do you know what it is? You're only as good as your last fight. Once I win, what's next? Okay, whoa, let me get home already. You know what I'm saying? So it ain't a big deal because all that matters to people is what's next. They ain't interested that you just won. All it is, you just go back to your family, you go back home, and that's like, it's crazy, isn't it? Like, it's built up. But in the grand scheme of things, all I want to do is go home and see my friends, go to the local shop and see the shopkeeper and all that stuff, and it's just back to basics.
Rich, first day I saw him when I arrived here, he was coming out of a lift. I was walking along and I saw him and I said straight away, "Whoa, you look slim." It's not unintentional. I mean, he looks lean. He looks, some of the footage that's crept out shows him looking a little bit faster, like he's cutting down the ring, like he's looking to do things. I like what I see.
So do I. It's common sense, Steve. At the end of the day, he's got to do things differently. He's got to be quicker on his feet. So you've got to have a lighter frame carrying it around. That's my opinion. All these people who say, put the weight on, it looks heavy. It depends on how you're going to box. Yeah. And that would give you an indication of how this fight could go for AJ in terms of how he's going to box.
Well, he said to you he felt like he was slow throughout that fight. So the last thing he needs to do is put on 4 stone.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm getting slightly.
But Steve, having said that, you hear people say, well, he should put weight on because then what he should do is
just push him back
or get him in the clinches, lean all over him. Do you honestly think Oleksandr Usyk, with all his experience, is going to allow AJ to grab hold of him and lean all over him and tire him out? Do me a favour. Yeah. Of course he won't.
A bit of speaks the fact. I came up with an idea the other day, Rich. It's a nice idea, and I got the idea of that. We know Usyk is slick and slippery, and we probably should talk about this on Friday. I'm just going to throw it out there. What about you throw really wide looping shots, anticipating his movement left or anticipating his movement right? I mean, talking about head down either side and let the shots go. So basically, they're sweeping. They're not really going to hit him on the chin.
Punches,
they're just, but they're going to.
Roy Jones is brilliant.
Bingo. They're going to kind of slightly upset his pattern. Anyway, we shouldn't talk directly about fight tactics. We've got a couple of days there. Just to say that tomorrow's pod, Richie and I are going to sit down with the fight from last October.
Well, to make a point, Steve,
September.
we were impressed with the frame. The way AJ looked. He looked lighter.
Both of us.
He looked sharper. Mentally looked switched on, or he sounds switched on, but the look of him, I like the look of him.
No, I do too. There was focus in his eyes, he was relaxed, and he understands how big an event is, and he's got the right fight nerves, which I like. Now, tomorrow's pod, we're not finished today yet, don't worry, don't turn off just yet, but tomorrow's pod, Richie and I are going to spend the morning out by the pool, where we are right now. We're out on the pool, overlooking the Red Sea, except we can't see the Red Sea because the Grand Prix here in Jeddah built a grand stand. So behind me, I've got basically 50-metre high grandstand. Behind that, so I'm told, there's the Red Sea. I can see it off to my left and I can see it off to my right. So we would have the ideal view here if that grandstand and that Grand Prix track wasn't between us and the Red Sea. Anyway, on tomorrow's show, Richie and I are going to sit down early in the morning. We're going to watch the entire fight from last September. And we're going to look at it and analyse it and start to look at, and Richie's going to start to look at things he can and should do differently, and also things that maybe Usyk can improve on, because that's the way it works. Now, it's not all about Usyk and Joshua this weekend, this Saturday here in Jeddah. Although that is without doubt, it's a big fight. I think it's a bigger fight than some people give it credit for. There is a bit of history being made on the undercard. A woman called Ramla Ali will have her 7th professional fight, and if that name sounds familiar, it's because this is what she is before I tell you what she will become. She's a Vogue model. She's a UN ambassador. She's an Olympian, and she's unbeaten as a pro. And she's set to make history as being part of the first ever female professional fight to take place here in Saudi Arabia. So she's going to be a history maker in addition to all those things. Now, I managed to catch up with her and speak to her, and I put it to her that to be all of those things to the best of your ability is hard, and that it's a serious balancing act.
It's very hard, but I always say the same thing. Like, if something is really important to you and it means a lot to you, always find a way. And so all of these, like, you know, things that I do, boxing, modelling, you know, the UN stuff, it means the world to me, and it all holds a deep place in my heart. So I always manage to find a way. Sometimes one might suffer in order for me to give 100% to the other. But for me, first and foremost, I always think of myself as a boxer, and I'm glad that I model because it allows me to be a full-time boxer. Because let's be honest, I don't get paid nearly as much as the men do. So, you know, all the other things.
Or some of the other women.
Or some of the other, well, one day.
Yeah.
But like for me right now, it allows me to be a full-time athlete, which is the end goal for me.
But it's right what you say, that if you didn't put as much effort into modelling, you could still go out and model.
Yeah.
I mean, providing you're not covered in acne or something, you know what I mean? And if you didn't put as much work into your UN work, you could still do it. You just have to read up quickly about what you are. But with the boxing,
you can't.
There's no shortcuts in our business. Is that a fair comment?
100%. Boxing is one of those sports where you get out what you put in.
Yeah.
And you can't get in the ring and give 50% in training. It will show on the night.
Sure.
And, you know, I'm too much of a person. I hate to think what people thought of me, so I always give 100% in my training. And you're 100% right. Like, boxing is one of those sports.
Well, do you feel under pressure? Because you know you are out there, you're known, you've got an image, you've got a face, and then you box well. Do you feel that sometimes you're put under a bit much pressure? Because I remember your debut. I thought there was we did it on 5 Live.
Yeah.
And I remember talking at the time to Mike Costello and saying, this girl's under too much pressure.
Yeah.
And I would have said the same about a boy. This boy's under too much pressure, and I mean that.
Sometimes, yes, but then I have an amazing team around me that, you know, tells me, you know, just right things I need to hear when I need to hear it. Like, don't put too much pressure on yourself. You know, you've given 100% in training.
Yeah.
If you lose on the day to the better person, you know you've given 100% and you've got nothing to feel guilty about. And that's the one thing I always tell myself. Sometimes there is a bit of pressure, but I've given 100%. And if anything goes wrong, I can't be angry with that.
I've got to ask you, we're here, you're in Saudi, you're going to be on the main side in the first female fight that take place in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
It's a huge honour to have been asked. It's one of those things where not only myself, but my opponent, let's give credit to her, we're going to both cement our names in history. You know, you get on the track and you get a world record, and then 2 months later, someone beats it. But
and you're gone from history then?
Yeah, and then you're erased from history. But you're never erased from history. You're here forever. You're the first. Right. So it's a huge honour, and one that I hold very dearly.
So Ramla Ali there talking us through what she's aware that you can't be a full-time model and a full-time boxer. And she knows that, and she also knows she's sensible enough. She knows you can't cut corners. She's a very stylish fighter, Ramla Ali. If you haven't seen her, she's a very stylish fighter. Her balance is good, her feet are good, and she does an awful lot of good work. The UN ambassador isn't just nothing. She genuinely has been in some tricky places doing her work. She's a good soul, and she can fight. Don't worry about that. And also, Rich, she makes history by becoming the first female professional here. And in fact, there's a gym here in this town, Jeddah, where we're reliably told there's about 30 young Saudi Arabian women from the age of about 14 up who are training, and I believe there's a sort of meet that Ramla's going to go and say hello to some of those women. That's a positive boxing story, isn't it?
Tremendous. I think at the turn of the century, if you were to come here then in the year 2000 and say to local people that in 22 years' time there'll be a female boxing match, they're lucky as if you were
not right.
Crazy.
Yeah,
you're probably arrested because you've probably been drinking and you shouldn't be drinking here.
Yeah, I mean, that's pure fantasy. You're absolutely right. And trust me, that's the absolute truth. If in 2000 you'd have been sitting around this pool saying, I tell you what, in 22 years I've got this vision. There's going to be a female, there's going to be an Olympian, an unbeaten pro, a UN ambassador fighting in front of 35,000 people at an indoor stadium. Get out of here. Anyway, Ramla Ali, as I say, she's a very stylish fighter. She might be one of the most stylish fighters on the circuit.
I like the look of her, Steve. She's tall, rangy. She's well schooled. She can box. So I think they'll like what they see, and it's great for women's boxing. It must be the fastest and one of the fastest growing sports in the world, and it's good to see it's now over here.
So let's have a think about this. We've done the heavyweight champion of the world, unbeaten Oleksandr Usyk, one of the modern greats, really. I think this is only his fourth ever heavyweight fight, if I'm not mistaken. Unified all those cruiserweight belts, went to people's country to do it, fought unbelievably, won Olympic gold, world championship gold as an amateur, European gold as an amateur. Dances, catches coins, he's entertaining. Then we did Anthony Joshua. He's already won and lost the world heavyweight title twice. He's about to try and win it for the third time, joining a very small club of heavyweights. And we've talked about the heat and the Grand Prix stand. And then we heard from Ramla Ali, who's going to be making history. The only thing missing, the producer and the editor is screaming, they're saying, Bunce, give me some local interest. Give me some local interest. I don't mean a baker. Give me some local interest. Luckily, I know a woman called Rachel Charles, who's from Birmingham, and she's based in Los Angeles, and she's got a finger in lots of boxing pie. She's good friends with Buddy McGirt, and she's got a Saudi Arabian boxer. Wouldn't you know it? Nicknamed Zizzo. His name is Ziad Al-Mayouf, and he's on the bill. He's probably going to open it. It's his first ever professional fight, and I got hold of him. I grabbed him, went and sat with him, talked to him. Nice kid, so excited. Anyway, I put it to him that you must be, it's obvious really, you must be so proud of fighting in front of your people.
Well, I'm as proud as everybody is proud of me, As long as they're proud and happy, I'm proud and happy, and I'm just full of pride and passion to be here and to do what I do best in front of thousands from my homeland.
And do you feel a bit of pressure fighting in front of your home fans, in your homeland, as you call it? Even though you're based in Los Angeles with Buddy McGirt, you're training with him there. This is still your land.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little secret about pressure.
I love secrets,
you tell me.
A little
secret about pressure. Pressure makes diamonds, and that's what I plan on doing fight night, Pressure is good. Pressure keeps my back against the wall, so when I look behind me, there's no way but forward, and that's what exactly I plan to do.
Now, I know from the last time that there was a big fight here in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, in Diriyah, there was a Saudi Arabian boxer on that bill, and his reception was incredible. That must be good, because it's also your professional debut, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, look, they are supporting me, and they are behind me, and have my back. Without knowing too much about me, wins, losses, amateur background, all they know is I'm Saudi, I'm Arab, and when you're doing something for them, they're behind you 100%.
And after you box, after you win, will you stay in Saudi for a while, maybe visit some boxing gyms, have a look?
Of course. I'm here to inspire, and I aspire to inspire. This is my dream, this is my goal in the sport, to set the stone for everyone who comes after me, and God willing, they could even become better than me, So I want to visit around, inspire others, and start not only visiting gyms, but maybe build a few myself.
Maybe build a few of yourself.
Yeah.
So said Zizou, top man. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure
talking to you.
It's a pleasure, and I never get used to this. This is a dream come true, and thank you for giving me the chance.
A very excited Zizou there, a Saudi Arabian fighting in Jeddah on a massive fight night. Did you ever have that, Rich, where, you know, at the start of your career, Mickey Duff, I'm assuming you were with at the time, stuck you on a big undercard somewhere?
Yeah, I think my third fight I fought on a Kirtland Lang bill at the Royal Albert Hall, which was fantastic.
Wow.
And then probably a dozen fights. I was on a couple of Frank Bruno bills at the NEC. Me, Robert McCracken, and myself, actually.
You never forget that, will you?
No, you never. No, you never forget that because in fact I kept one of the posters because Mickey Duff used to give you posters. Put these around town.
Put them around town.
But I kept a couple of these ones because they were 6 foot high. They're massive.
Get it.
Yeah, huge posters.
Your name on the poster?
Yeah, with my picture. So
Yeah,
I kept a couple
brilliant.
that says Mickey. I put all those posters out, mate. But I kept a few back.
If you'd have kept, I'm whispering because obviously you've got to be a bit quiet about this. If you'd have kept 50 of them, you could sell them now. You'd make a fortune online, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Original fight posters.
I think Carl the Truth Williams he fought.
Yeah, Birmingham.
Yeah, and Jesse Ferguson.
Yeah,
And
but they were both decent. They were both good wins. People, listen, I don't want to turn this into the Frank Bruno podcast, but they were both good
wins.
Proper hard heavyweights.
Against
and
good
he
Americans.
And he took care of them. Well, listen, Rich, it's been a delight that you finally joined me out here, and you've had a great start. You've got an exclusive with Usyk. You've been reunited with.
We were lucky with Usyk
Joshua.
because, Steve, as he came through to speak to the press, he spoke to 2 people. I was the second person. Then he was called away, and no one else in the press.
And there was
spoke to him.
about 60 people waiting.
There's
Other
loads.
radio stations,
and they were looking
TV
at us to
companies.
say, who are they?
Yeah,
we got him.
I heard that,
Brilliant.
and I spoke to his man Aegis Klimas about that, and he said, well, he did 2 hours the other day. Everybody is asking the same questions. I said, not my man Richie. He went, no, he asked good questions. Honestly, this is something you can't invent this stuff.
Brilliant.
Richie, it's a delight to have you out here sweating on this landing with me. We'll be back tomorrow with a very special pod as Richie and I sit down and analyse the fight. So it's the end of day 3 here in Jeddah. I don't need to say it's hot, and it's without a doubt heated up. There was something special about the head-to-head today. No need for pushing, shouting, screaming, swearing. They looked at each other, they gave each other a nod, they turned around. Usyk in his Cossack outfit and AJ in his normal tracksuit and t-shirt. Both of them, as Richie has said there, Richie was 18 inches from their eyes, both of their eyes full of intensity and fire. I think we might be in for something very, very special. Thanks very much, Richie. Now, before I finish this pod, I've got to give you a medical update. A friend of mine, Andy Bell, who works really closely with Joshua, has been very influential over the last 10 or so years. His mum, Anne, that's Anne Bell, she fell over in Edinburgh and she's injured her hip. I don't have any other medical update, but I'd just like to say from everybody on this pod, get well soon, Anne. We'll be back tomorrow.
Let's get ready to rumble!
5 Live Boxing.